Hello again, everybody, and welcome to an instant reaction Bayou Bets Saints second round pick edition here in the NFL draft. Zach Ewing with Jim Derry with you. And Jim, the second round moving along speedily here. They're already on pick number 38. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, which means the Saints are in the hole.
The
So far
Falcons
today,
just made a pick. Actually, the Falcons.
Oh, did the Falcons trade up to 38?
They must have. They took Matthew Bergeron. Matthew Bergeron.
Matthew Bergeron, the top offensive tackle at 38. So now the Panthers on the clock and the Saints are on deck.
Correct.
So we're very, very quickly coming up on the Saints' second pick. 7 picks have been made today. Joey Porter Jr., son of the Hall of Fame linebacker, goes to the Steelers.
Great.
Yeah, great moment. Will Levis, his slide finally stops at 33. The Tennessee Titans trade up to get him. Will Levis sounds way too much like Malik Willis for my liking if I'm a Titans fan.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We're getting to the point now, 3 NFC South teams pick in a row. That's kind of weird as it is. But we're getting to a weird part of this draft. Like, do you take need? Do you take best player available? And the Saints have some choices to make here. Man, the Falcons so far have done a really good job. I think, Bergeron is obviously a need for them. I'm not certainly sure running back is a huge need, but, but Bijan Robinson's a great pick. So Carolina's getting better. We know they're going to be better, and they're going to make a move here. So, I'm trying to see if the pick is in. I was trying to see if I saw it, and I do not. But Saints going to have some choices to make. I know a lot of Saints fans out there want Hendon Hooker, but absolutely not. I'm probably not going to be a happy camper here in about 5 or 6 minutes if that's what the pick is.
Well, let's talk about some of the Saints options because the other pick of note, Michael Mayer, goes at number 35 to the Raiders. They traded up to that spot. He was the top available tight end. Some thought he was the top tight end in the entire draft. He ended up being the third one. But if you want a tight end, Darnell Washington of Georgia is still out there. And then the kid from Oregon State, whose name I'm going to forget again, is out there as well. There's Darnell Washington of Georgia.
Luke Musgrave
very athletic
is who you're
guy.
talking about.
Yeah, Musgrave. That's in fact, I think he's the son of an NFL player. So he's out there. Offensive line, that's why the Falcons just moved up to get Bergeron, the top offensive tackle left on the board. But Mauch of North Dakota State is still out there. Osiris Torrance of Florida, if you want to guard. Or is it Schmidt of Minnesota? John Michael Schmidt is a center, and he's out there. So if you want to go offensive line, one of those guys is going to be available. We'll see what the Panthers do, but certainly some opportunity there for the Saints.
Yeah, we have a few minutes to make our predictions or whatever. And if you guys want to make your predictions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Or if you don't want to make a prediction, say who you want. Feel free to leave that in the comments as well. Look, I'm not a guy who thinks this team really needs a tight end. I know a lot of people do, but man, Darnell Washington is kind of a freak of nature, right? I mean, he's a beast. So if they were to go that route, I wouldn't be upset with that. Osiris Torrance is definitely a need, and he's also a guy who would fit in well there, I think. So the pick is in, by the way, for the Panthers. If you got your handy dandy ahead of TV Twitter.
Yeah, my spoiler alert. And by the way, we will spoil the Saints pick when it comes in. So if you're one of those people who wants to hear the announcement on the stage, then mute us or whatever. But we will have the pick as soon as we get wind of it at number 40 for the Saints. So we'll see what the Carolina Panthers do first. A couple of real quick announcements before we get there. One is that our NFL draft coverage is sponsored by Tulane Doctors, proudly bringing the future of medicine to New Orleans. Find your doctor at tulanedoctors.com. The other is that you should subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, and you can be with us as we go live at 4 p.m. every Monday and Thursday. We're also going to be back later tonight when the Saints make their second pick of the night, which right now they're scheduled to do at number 71. So it'll be a couple of hours.
Which we hope will be a running back. That's where you pick the running back at 71.
That could be Tyjae Spears for sure, huh?
Very well could be Tyjae Spears. There are quite a few running backs. I know people are talking about different things. There are quite a few potential picks there at 71. So we'll see how this draft goes. Things went the way of the Saints last night, even though I wasn't thrilled about the pick. It went their way. That's, they actually had multiple players on their board. They didn't have to trade up. So it went their way, and we'll see if it goes their way again tonight. So far, it would have been nice if Michael Mayer or Meyer, however you want to pronounce it, would have fell to the Saints. But the Raiders traded up to get him once the Lions made a ridiculous pick ahead of them, picking a tight end that they could have traded down to get. That was insane.
It's the third.
So
the Lions third.
The Lions, I don't give a lot of Fs. I don't give a lot of As, and I don't give a lot of Fs. But right now, the Lions are pretty close to an F with what where they were picking.
My thing with the Lions is all three of those players, Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, and now the tight end from Iowa, Sam Laporta. They could all end up being good players.
They could.
They could have gotten those guys all 10 plus picks later than they picked them. That's the sign of a bad pick to me. You're wasting draft capital. There's
zero question about that, and they've. It wasn't like they did it once. They continue to do it. Yeah, that's right. I'm just doing it to tick you off, Uncle Big Nick. I'm wearing crimson on purpose. The Carolina Panthers select Jonathan Mingo, probably a guy the Saints were looking at, wide receiver from Ole Miss. I don't know how high he was on their board, but I know no wide receiver is up there. So I was talking last night about potentially one of the Tennessee wide receivers. And we'll see which one go. I know you like Cedric Tillman a little bit better than Jalen Hyatt because Jalen Hyatt's kind of a speedy guy. Tillman's probably more a possession receiver. But again, I talked last night about how I thought Michael Thomas is probably going to slip into that role of more of a possession receiver and maybe goal line receiver. And he's not going to play the same role that he's played. I mean, I think there's little question about that. So
right.
We'll see.
Saints on the clock. Let's do our predictions here because it could come any minute now.
Okay.
For their second round pick at number 40, who you got for the New Orleans Saints?
This is really tough. Man.
I mean, there's a lot of good choices. There are. Like, Jonathan Mingo, by the way, will be Bryce Young's favorite choice.
I think they're going to go. I mean, I thought they were going to go offense last night. I was wrong. I mean, looking at the board, at least the board, my board, I guess. I think they're going to go, even though I wouldn't take a tight end here, I'm not going to be upset if they take Darnell Washington. And at 6'7", 275 or what the hell or whatever else he is and can catch. He's not just that big and is just a monster. That's not what I would pick Torrance, but I think they're going to go Darnell Washington. That's my prediction.
Okay, so we just got word of the pick. So again, spoiler alert. But
turn it off if you don't want to hear it. Turn it off.
In the NFL draft, the Saints will select a defensive end
that is
from
insanely
Notre Dame,
bad.
Isaiah Foskey.
That is insanely bad.
The pick. But okay, Jim, you say that, but what do you know about Isaiah Foskey? How can you say
it's not the person, okay? It's not the player. He might be the best player left available. This team needs to stop picking defense. They need offense. They don't understand that. Okay, last night was one thing. I get you need an interior defensive lineman. You have the outside covered, and you just picked a defensive end in the first round 3 years ago. You don't need defense. It's ridiculous. It's no different than picking Hendon Hooker here. I feel exactly the same way about picking.
That is ridiculous.
No, this is ridiculous. You're picking a defensive end when you don't need a defensive end. You're going to need a defensive end. You don't need one right now.
Defensive ends. You don't rotate quarterbacks. Totally different situation.
Yeah, you also rotate wide receivers, and you only have 3 of them. Okay? You need another tight end. You need guards. You have 2 of them. One of them's always hurt, and the other one sucks. It's not a tough thing here. I mean, I don't understand what's hard to understand about this.
Isaiah Foskey, a 6'5" edge rusher. 264 pounds.
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Again, they like athleticism. His athleticism score was 79th. He's 7th among edge rushers at the combine for that score.
Wonderful.
4.58 40-yard dash. Let's see. He was the 2021. He led the Fighting Irish with 12.5 tackles for loss. He had 11 sacks, tied for the national lead with 6 forced fumbles. Then in 2022, a second-team All-America. He led Notre Dame again, 14 tackles for loss and 11 more sacks. He also blocked 2 punts in each of those years. So he's a disruptive, productive player. I get that it's not probably their top position of need. It's definitely not their top position of need.
It's not even the top 4.
You lost Marcus Davenport to free agency. You don't know what you're getting out of Peyton
Who was a
Turner.
bum.
Cam Jordan's getting older. Like I don't think it's certainly not a position where you don't need anybody.
Sure. I mean, sure. I mean, you need a kicker. Does that mean you should draft one here? No. I mean, this is a need for later. I mean, defensive end is something you pick later and next year, actually. I mean, I understand Cam Jordan is probably fairly close to being done, but you worry about that when you need it. I mean, this is a team that thinks they're going to contend not only for the division title, but try to make a move and get into the playoffs with a ridiculously easy schedule. This is as easy of a schedule as this team's going to have maybe ever. I mean, if you look at it just on paper, comparatively, it's like the NFC East had last year, right? But I mean, they're not going to get this lucky again. This is a once in a decade kind of schedule they got coming up. So
I will say
you need to shore up what you need and try to make a run this year. And picking a guy that's going to rotate in and out, as you say, that's not something you pick now.
It's depth. I mean, somebody gets injured, Peyton Turner can't contribute again. It's depth.
I get it. You're trying to defend them, or at least be the contrarian. I'm not sure which one it is.
I would have taken an offensive lineman. I mean, to me,
I would have been fine with that.
There were plenty of good ones left, and they need offensive linemen as well. That's what
they need a guard way more. I mean, like 5 times more than they need a defensive end. They need, and again, I get running back. That's something you're probably going to take in the third. Well, I don't even know if they're going to take it in the third round now. I have no confidence that this team realizes how much they really need a running back here. But now you missed out on an opportunity to help give Derek Carr another weapon. It's, man, great. You'll be able to stop people. You're just going to score 13 points a game.
We're going to bring up a new batch of Saints picks here to show you what they've done. They get Brian Brzee at number 29, defensive tackle. Isaiah Foskey at number 40, defensive end. Next scheduled pick for the Saints is number 71. What do we I mean, you mentioned running back when we first came on the air here. Could be offensive line. Do they move up from 71? I mean, you got to wait a full 30 picks here. What's your thought?
I don't think so, because there are a bunch of now, again, we don't know that that's the direction they're going to go, because I would have bet a lot of money that we're going to take a defensive end here. Now, this obviously must be Dennis Allen actually having more of a finger on the pulse of this team, or more input, I guess, than maybe I expected. Maybe he does have Sean Payton kind of input right now, because obviously he wants to shore up his defense as best he can. Look, I already think the Saints defense is pretty good anyway. So, I mean, you're making it better. That's wonderful. It's great. But you got to give your quarterback weapons. So, I mean, I think they're going to go running back. And if they do, there are plenty of options. I mean, you talk about the kid from Texas A&M, Ashane, Charbonnet.
David Achane, yeah.
Tank Bigsby is going to be available. I don't know if that he fits into the Saints kind of plans, but we talked about Tajay Spears, keeping him here in New Orleans. There are plenty of them, and a lot of them will be. A couple of them will probably be picked. Charbonnet's probably going to be picked before the Saints pick. And there'll be a couple other ones that may be picked, but
some of those guys will even be around, if not at 115 and earlier in the fourth round, to where maybe you could package 3 of your late picks to move up to 100 or something.
Maybe.
I don't know. 71, I don't think has to be a running back, but if Tajay Spears or Zach Charbonnet is the guy they really like, and you need to move up to 60 to get him, then they will. If not, you sit at 71, you take.
I don't know that you need to move up to get Tajay Spears. He hasn't exactly been jumping up the draft boards. He kind of did for a very brief time early on, but he kind of settled back down to where I think he's now back to being a solid third-round pick. I think he'll still be there at 70 if the Saints want him. I'm not saying that's the way they should go. Look, I covered Tajay in high school. I've said from a long time ago that I thought he was going to be a realistic threat well beyond college, and I still think he's going to be. And if you remember, we talked about this before. Alvin Kamara was a third-round pick, and we know what he's turned out to be. So I think you can get a running back here that, if that's where they want to go next, that can help this team and move this team forward. But man, if they pick defense again, I may shoot out my chair into the ceiling here.
both Brian Brzee and Isaiah Foskey, by the way, very high on the relative athletic scorer ranking, which is something the Saints love. They followed it for years, and frankly, it's done them pretty good. I mean, look, they've drafted well. You can't deny that. And so both of these guys, in fact, Foskey ranks even higher than Brzee does. I think he looks like a fine player, Jim, very productive player at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly probably knows quite a bit about him. And you wonder if he was in the Saints years. But I think your biggest problem here is it's not the position where you would have liked to see them spend that pick.
Correct. It's not I'm not complaining about the person or the player. I mean, he may turn out to be a great player. Fine and dandy. But again, you're in a position to, after the season you had last year, you need to be shoring up the spots that you need to shore up and hope that everything else is okay. You don't go for filler until you get to a point where you can go for filler. And this team doesn't have
filler.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, it's not much more. It is in the grand scheme of things.
I totally disagree.
It's a luxury. Okay, it's a luxury. It's not a need. Anything other than a need is a luxury. So to me, luxury filler. Okay.
Now, did they need to spend a second-round pick on him? I don't know if they needed to spend a second-round pick, but they needed a defensive end somewhere. Absolutely, that's a need.
That's like your fourth or fifth need. Everything's a need. I mean, everything's a need. You could say third quarterback is a need. I mean, by definition, you could say anything's a need. You need to have 52 players on your roster. So anything's a need. But it's when you go down the list of what this team actually has to have in real needs, I mean, they need two guards, not one. They need two guards before they need a defensive end. They need at least one running back before they need a defensive end. They need at least one wide receiver before they need a defensive end. So off the top of my head, that's 4 players that they need before they need this. So, I mean, that's like saying, okay, I got $5,000 in my pocket. Let me just go blow it on, I don't know, let's go have great food 3 weekends in a row, and now I got $2,000 in my pocket. You're wasting your spot here. Take a defensive end later. I don't care if you take a defensive end in the 4th or 5th round, someone that can contribute and be that rotational player that you talk about. But that's not what this team needs right now.
I got to say this is, and you're not going to like me saying this either, but this is an argument for Jeff Duncan. And when he says the Saints are going to take the best player available, they certainly had needs that were bigger than defensive end. But they took the guy they thought was the best.
I don't believe they take the best player. Fit. They took need. I mean, okay, we can sit here and I might not like the Brian Brzee pick, okay? But that's only because I thought that they needed all the aforementioned positions more than I thought they needed defensive tackle, because I think it's easier to get that. However, that being said, I don't have a problem with the pick because they, as an organization, thought they needed that first, or they thought he was the best of their group or whatever. I don't necessarily have a problem with it just because I don't agree. I said this last night. Just because I don't agree with, that's not what I would have taken there. I don't have as much of a problem with it as Luke Musgrave goes off the board of the Packers. They got another good tight end over there. But it's not the point of that. So I can live with the Brzee pick, again, even if I don't agree with it. This is just dumb. Again, dumb.
Wow. It's
dumb. I want you to find. Yeah, well, I think if I said it was a great pick, you'd probably say they don't need that. That's what I think.
I mean, that's your stick. You like to be contrarian. I'm
No, I tell you the way that I think that it is, and we've agreed a lot lately. Actually, the last 3-4 weeks, we've had shows where we really haven't had a lot of disagreements because I've agreed with a lot of the things that you said. I don't disagree just to disagree. But this is just.
No, neither do I.
This is asinine. Yeah, that is. I guess it is.
Anyway, that's
because I think you have more sense than that. I mean, that's all.
I think that you are pigeonholing the Saints into they've got to pick offense. They've got to pick offense. They didn't like any of the offensive players. Why do they have to pick one of them?
They didn't like any of the offensive players?
At 40, maybe they like them at 50 or 60.
They don't like Osiris Torrance, who is better than either of the two guards they have right now. They don't like Darnell Washington, who is a different kind of person at tight end. Again, and I like in Darnell Washington, they don't necessarily need they need a tight end about as much as they need Isaiah Foskey. But at least you're giving your offense needs
defensive end.
Here's a broader point of the whole thing. Okay, if you think your defense is, I mean, their defense has been ranked in the top 10 for 2 years in a row now. In fact, they've been ranked in the top 7 for 2 years in a row now. Okay, I think they were number 4 2 years ago. So there's no question that before this draft even came about, we know they need a defensive tackle. Fine, you go get one in the first round. Great. Okay, but how much are you going to keep putting into your defense when you have had the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th ranked offense? I get that Derek Carr changes that, but he doesn't change it that much to where you don't need to go in there. And they should have spent this entire GD draft on offense. I wouldn't have even had a problem if they would have done that. I mean, I get you do things later on in the draft and you pick prospects and players that can end up making your roster, and you don't expect 5th, 6th, 7th round players to make it. If they do, great. But beyond that, this team has been in the 20s in offense since Drew Brees left, and Derek Carr is not going to solve that by himself. And you're not solving any problem. You're going to lose Alvin Kamara for half the year, maybe more. You know, you're depending on Michael Thomas. You've been depending on him like the Pelicans have been depending on Zion Williamson. You don't know what you're going to get there. So you keep shoring up this 5th-ranked defense that you have. Meanwhile, ignore your 25th-ranked offense over and over again since Sean Payton left, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Big Irv says, who dat? I think he's happy. By the way, congratulations to LSU edge rusher B.J. Ojulari goes to pick right after the Saints. He went number 41 to Arizona. And as you mentioned, that was followed by Luke Musgrave, the Oregon State tight end, to the Packers. And just now at 43, the New York Jets take Joe Tipman, the center from Wisconsin. So that's where we're at. The Saints will pick again in about, I would say about an hour and a half, just estimating, if they stay where they're at number 71. So we're going to be back with you. It's going to be a new link. We can't use the same broadcast once we end the live stream. So we will send out a new link on all these social media platforms. Look for that. We'll have
Horace agrees with me.
round three reaction. Yeah, Horace says he doesn't understand the pick. Maybe the best guard in the draft was there. Irv says the best available tight end is next.
You missed that boat.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I don't think they really need a tight end anyway. I mean, I don't know why everybody's giving up on Troutman already anyway, but that's a whole nother story. I don't think they need
Juwan Johnson better than Troutman, but
so do I. I do too. Yeah. I think he's the first tight end. I'm just saying you don't need a tight end because you have 2 of them. I like Juwan Johnson better than Troutman for sure. But anyway, it's just I don't like where this draft's going. So when we get to prediction time next time, I'm going to have over the course of the next hour, I'm going to go take a hat and I'm going to put like 60 names in it. And I'll pick one out of there, and that'll be my prediction. Because, you could have given me 50 guesses, and I wouldn't have guessed Foskey there.
Robin Watkins says she misses Drew and Sean. Yeah, a lot of things. But listen, that era's over. You talked about this a couple weeks ago.
All the time.
This is Dennis Allen's first draft as the head coach with no one looking over their shoulder at Sean Payton.
Correct.
With his quarterback. And we're going to see what he does. And Isaiah Foskey may end up being a bust. He may end up being a Pro Bowler. We honestly don't know.
It may be a Pro Bowl, and it's still the wrong pick.
You can. That's okay. That's just you're just being stubborn now.
No, I'm not, because other players they could have got are going to be bigger needs. Is Isaiah Foskey going to help you get in the end zone? Unless he recovers a fumble in the end zone, or sacks a player inside the 10 and they fumble, or gets some batted tip and gets a turnover, he's not going to help you score points. And this team can't score points right now. And Derek Carr's not going to help them enough to score points.
No one expected them to take Alontae Taylor in the second round last year, and he ended up being
That's different. That was a need, though. The only reason why we're upset about Alontae Taylor is because we didn't know who Alontae Taylor was. It wasn't because it was a cornerback. I wouldn't have as much if Isaiah Foskey was a wide receiver or an offensive guard, or I don't know Isaiah Foskey, to be honest. So I'm not criticizing the player or the person. I'm criticizing the position. If they would have taken some wide receiver that I didn't really know, or some guard that I didn't really know, or a running back or a tight end that I didn't really know, I wouldn't have nearly as much problem with it, because, they scouted this guy. That's completely different than Alontae Taylor. They needed a cornerback.
Jim's telling the truth, because you did say this is stupid. As soon as I said they're taking a defensive end, then I hadn't even said the name.
That's absolutely right.
Now, all the top defensive ends are off the board, so it's not like they were going to go get Nolan Smith at this point.
I may have to drink in between shows.
All right. Well, we'll be back. A few picks before the Saints pick at number 71 in the third round. We'll join you live again. So tune in. Thank you for being here. We're presented by Tulane Doctors, and we'll see you again around pick 67, 68, somewhere in there, and we'll pop back in.